10 square kilometers of brand new land, rising from the ocean floor, protected by a massive concrete wall stretching more than 8 kilometers into the Atlantic, home to 250,000 people who don't exist yet. This is Eko Atlantic, Africa's answer to Dubai, built on a promise to save Lagos from the sea. But here's the paradox. The same wall designed to protect one of Africa's most important cities might be pushing the ocean's fury onto the very communities it was supposed to save. 16 people died in 2012 when the Atlantic surged through neighborhoods near the construction site. Entire beaches have vanished. Homes built just a decade ago now stand with waves crashing through their ground floors. And while glass towers rise behind the Great Wall of Lagos, families on the other side are watching their land disappear beneath the water. So what's really happening here? Is Eko Atlantic the future of coastal cities fighting climate change? Or is it a $6 billion fortress that protects the wealthy while sacrificing everyone else? Let's unpack the full story. Before we dive in, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. And hey, drop a comment below to join the conversation. I love hearing from you. Let's begin the journey. To understand Eko Atlantic, you first need to understand Lagos. This isn't just another African city. Lagos is the economic heart of Nigeria, West Africa's financial capital, and one of the fastest growing megacities on Earth. 20 million people call it home today. That number could hit 25 million within the next decade. But Lagos has a problem. The city sits barely 2 meters above sea level, spread across islands and a narrow mainland strip pressed between the Atlantic Ocean and Lagos Lagoon. For over a century, the coastline has been eroding, not slowly. We're talking 30 meters per year in some areas. Historical maps show that a century ago, the coastline extended nearly 3 kilometers further into the Atlantic than it does today. Bar Beach, once one of Lagos's most popular coastal attractions, became ground zero for this crisis. Every year, waves claimed more land, buildings collapsed into the sea, roads vanished. The government tried everything, dumping sand, building temporary barriers, emergency projects. Nothing worked. The beach kept eroding. The Atlantic kept advancing. By the early 2000s, it was clear Lagos needed a permanent solution. But this wasn't just about saving a beach. This was about protecting Victoria Island, one of the city's wealthiest and most economically vital districts. This was about climate change, sea level rise, and storm surges getting stronger and more frequent. About a city running out of space for its exploding population. In 2005, Governor Bola Ahmed Tinubu sent a letter to President Olusegun Obasanjo with a radical proposal. Instead of fighting the ocean, why not reclaim land from it? Turn this environmental disaster into an opportunity. Build a new city, a world-class financial hub on land taken back from the Atlantic. The president approved. South Energyx Nigeria Limited, a subsidiary of the Chaguri Group, was brought in as the private developer. By 2008, construction began. In 2009, the Lagos state government and South Energyx received the Clinton Global Initiative Commitment Certificate, bringing global attention to what was being called the most ambitious land reclamation project in Africa's history. The vision was stunning. A brand new city rising from the ocean, designed from scratch to international standards, with the infrastructure Lagos desperately needed and the resilience to survive whatever the Atlantic could throw at it. And they called it Eko Atlantic. Picture this from above. You're flying over Lagos, approaching Victoria Island from the south. Below you, the familiar coastline curves and sprawls, but jutting out into the Atlantic like a massive geometric peninsula that wasn't there 20 years ago. You see it, Eko Atlantic City. 10 square kilometers of reclaimed land. That's roughly the size of Manhattan's central business district. The entire peninsula is wrapped by the Great Wall of Lagos, an 8.5-kilometer-long sea defense barrier made of massive rock and faced with concrete acropode armor units, each weighing several tons. The city is divided into 10 distinct districts, each with its own character. At the heart sits the business district, 700,000 square meters of grade A commercial space, designed to rival the financial centers of New York, London, or Paris. Developers literally modeled Eko Boulevard after the Champs-Élysées, 8 lanes wide, tree-lined, flanked by skyscrapers reaching 35 floors or higher. To the west, the Marina District offers waterfront living with luxury apartments, restaurants, boutique hotels, and a promenade wrapping around the coast. Think Miami Beach meets Monaco. On the eastern edge, the Harbor Lights District provides views of the port and shipping lanes. Further inland, residential zones designed for medium-density development, townhouses, low-rise buildings, family-friendly neighborhoods, and underground, a modern drainage system designed to handle Lagos's torrential rains, fiber optic cables connecting every plot, independent power supply, crucial in a country where blackouts are routine, water treatment facilities, everything you'd expect in a 21st century smart city. The vision isn't subtle. This isn't incremental urban development. This is a complete reimagining of what an African city can be. Glass and steel rising from reclaimed land. A city that doesn't exist yet, built for a future that hasn't arrived. And the price tag? $6 billion or more when everything's said and done. All privately funded. No taxpayer money, just private investment betting on Lagos's future. But how do you actually build a city in the ocean? Let's talk about engineering, because this is where Eko Atlantic gets genuinely impressive. First, you need land, and when there is no land, you make it. The process is called land reclamation, and it starts with dredging. Massive vessels equipped with powerful pumps suck sand from the ocean floor and spray it onto the construction area. By 2023, contractors had deposited over 75 million cubic meters of sand. That's enough to fill 30,000 Olympic swimming pools. But you can't just pile sand wherever you want. The dredging operation has to follow strict protocols to avoid destroying the seabed or destabilizing the coastline. The sand is sourced from beyond the -15 contour, a depth line where dredging won't affect shallow waters or create dangerous holes near the shore. The Dutch engineering firm Royal Haskoning supervised the entire reclamation process, ensuring it met international standards. Next, you need protection, because without it, the ocean will simply reclaim everything you've built. Enter the Great Wall of Lagos. This isn't a wall in the traditional sense. It's a massive coastal revetment, essentially an artificial slope built from hundreds of thousands of tons of rock, faced with concrete acropode units that interlock to dissipate wave energy. Each acropode is specially shaped to break up the force of incoming waves, preventing them from smashing directly into the reclaimed land. The wall was designed and tested at the Danish Hydraulic Institute in Copenhagen. Engineers built a full-scale model and subjected it to simulated storm conditions. Not just average storms, but 1 in 100-year surges, 1 in 500-year events, even 1 in 1,000-year storms. The testing showed the wall could handle it all. By 2023, about 7 kilometers of the wall had been completed. The final 1.5 kilometers are still under construction. On top of the completed sections, developers are building the Great Wall Promenade, a public walkway with ocean views designed to become one of Lagos's signature destinations. And then there's the infrastructure: roads, bridges, underground utilities, electrical grids, water systems, fiber optics, all being installed as the land is filled. 14 major bridges are already complete. Power lines run underground to avoid the mess of overhead cables that tangle Lagos's older neighborhoods. The city is designed with elevated street levels to allow for basement parking above the groundwater line. China Communications Construction Group handled much of the dredging and land reclamation. Nigerian firms like ITB Nigeria Limited are building roads and structures. International consultants oversee quality control. It's a massive, coordinated operation involving thousands of workers, dozens of companies, and some of the most advanced marine engineering technology in the world. The ambition is overwhelming. This isn't a building. This isn't even a neighborhood. This is an entire city built from nothing in one of the world's most challenging environments. So where does the project stand today? Let's walk through the timeline. Construction officially began in 2008. By 2009, millions of cubic meters of sand had already been deposited, and the first sections of the Great Wall were taking shape. In 2013, a major ceremony marked the completion of the initial land reclamation phase. Former President Goodluck Jonathan attended. So did former US President Bill Clinton, who championed the project through his global initiative. In 2014, the managing director announced that the first residential tower would open in 2016. That didn't happen. By 2018, the city had 3 completed buildings, 2 residential towers and 1 commercial structure. Roads were being paved. Infrastructure was progressing. But the global oil price crash that started in 2014 had hammered Nigeria's economy, slowing investment and construction. Eko Atlantic wasn't immune. By 2020, the Eko Pearl Towers were complete and occupied. Sports events and concerts were being held on the peninsula. The city was becoming real, but slowly, much more slowly than originally projected. Fast forward to 2023. The project had moved into its 4th out of 6 development phases. About 6.5 square kilometers of the planned 10 had been reclaimed. The Great Wall was 70% complete. The original timeline called for the entire seawall to be finished by 2020. That deadline came and went. Developers now project full completion sometime in the late 2020s. But 2024 saw a surge in construction activity. Renewed investor interest brought new projects to life. The residential pipeline expanded significantly. Luxury towers are rising in the Marina District. The Azuri Peninsula project is underway. The United United States broke ground on what will be the world's largest consulate general building, a $537 million facility scheduled to open in 2027. The city is far from complete. Large sections remain empty, dotted with construction equipment and unfinished plots. But it's no longer a desert of sand. Buildings are occupied. Businesses are operating. Roads connect functional districts. Eko Atlantic is no longer just a vision. It's a partially built city inching toward reality. So what's the promise? What's supposed to make this all worthwhile? Let's start with the economic case. First, jobs. The project claims it will ultimately create over 150,000 permanent jobs once fully operational. Construction alone has employed thousands. When the city reaches capacity, it's supposed to house corporate headquarters, financial institutions, tech companies, international firms looking for a foothold in West Africa. Lagos is already Nigeria's economic engine. Eko Atlantic is supposed to supercharge that by providing world-class office space that simply doesn't exist elsewhere in the region. The goal is to attract multinational corporations that would otherwise set up shop in Dubai, Johannesburg, or London. And it's working, at least part. Major oil companies have purchased plots. Banks are building headquarters. The U.S. consulate's decision to build its largest facility in the world here is a massive vote of confidence. Second, flood protection. This part is critical. The Great Wall of Lagos doesn't just protect Eko Atlantic, it shields Victoria Island from ocean surges and storm flooding. Without the wall, rising sea levels and increasingly powerful storms would threaten billions of dollars in existing infrastructure. So in theory, Eko Atlantic isn't just building a new city, it's also protecting an old one. Third, real estate and investment. Lagos has a chronic housing shortage. Demand for high-quality residential and commercial space far exceeds supply. Eko Atlantic offers premium real estate in a city where premium real estate barely exists. Prices are high. Land starts at over $1,000 per square meter. But for wealthy Nigerians and international investors, it's an opportunity to own property in what could become one of Africa's most prestigious addresses. Fourth, it's a free trade zone. Eko Atlantic operates with special economic status, offering investors zero corporate income tax on free zone income, zero VAT on purchases within the zone, and exemption from foreign exchange controls. For businesses, this is huge. In the best case scenario, all of this comes together. Eko Atlantic becomes West Africa's financial capital, a hub for technology, innovation, and international trade, a city that proves Africa can build world-class infrastructure and compete. Let's slow down and talk about what isn't in the glossy promotional videos. Because while glass towers rise behind the Great Wall, just a few kilometers away, people are losing their homes to the ocean. Not metaphorically, literally. Take Alpha Beach. 12 kilometers east of Eko Atlantic, this middle-class neighborhood was once a thriving coastal community. Families lived there. Businesses operated there. There was a beach, a shoreline, palm trees. People built homes expecting to pass them down to their children. Then, Eko Atlantic's construction began in 2007, and within a few years, residents started noticing changes. The currents shifted. Waves grew more aggressive. The shoreline started eroding fast. Not slow, natural erosion, but rapid, devastating land loss. More than 25 meters of shoreline vanished in the first decade after construction started. The shore-hugging Alpha Beach Road, gone, swallowed by the Atlantic. Apartment blocks built with ocean views a decade ago, now occupied only by squatters, with waves crashing through the ground floors. Families evacuated, businesses closed, the community crumbled. Wasu Elagushi, a local landowner, told reporters his ancestral home now sits somewhere under the ocean. He points far out into the Atlantic to where streets and buildings once stood. Before Eko, we had nature, palm trees, and coconut trees. The water started to rise. Everything has been washed away. Then there's Okun Alpha, a neighboring community facing a similar fate. Tidal surges fueled by climate change and questionable urban planning have ravaged the area. What was once Alpha Beach, a popular tourist destination, is gone. Residents don't even call it Alpha Beach anymore. They consider it extinct. Environmental experts say the problem is simple physics. When you build a massive seawall, approaching storm surges don't just stop. They search for the path of least resistance. They move left or right, looking for a weak point, a gap, lower ground. And if the wall protects one area while leaving neighboring communities unprotected, the surge redirects to those vulnerable spots. David Frame, the managing director of Eko Atlantic's developer, denies the project is causing these problems. He insists the seawall was designed by experts, tested extensively, and built according to international standards. He points out that dredging was done responsibly, following protocols to avoid damaging the coastline. But the residents of Alpha Beach and Okun Alpha don't buy it. They see the timeline. Erosion accelerated after Eko Atlantic's construction began. Beaches vanished, homes flooded, lives destroyed, and then there's the social cost. Let's be clear about who Eko Atlantic is for. Land prices start at over $1,000 per square meter. Apartments in the completed residential towers sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars, far beyond the reach of the average average Lagosian. This isn't a city for the masses. It's a city for Nigeria's elite, for international investors, for multinational corporations. In a city where millions live in informal settlements and slums, Eko Atlantic is a gated island of wealth. It's been called Africa's Dubai, and not always as a compliment. Critics see it as a stark symbol of a two-tier city, gleaming towers for the rich, while the poor are pushed further into vulnerable, flood-prone areas. Some communities near Bar Beach allege they were forcibly evicted to make way for construction, with inadequate compensation. Environmental impact assessments have been criticized for not fully considering the social and environmental consequences. Locals say they were never meaningfully consulted, that decisions were made behind closed doors. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Eko Atlantic might save Victoria Island from flooding. It might create jobs and attract investment, but it's also creating a fortress mentality. Protected versus unprotected, rich versus poor, those behind the wall and those exposed to the sea. This isn't just a Lagos story, it's part of a global pattern. Around the world, coastal cities facing similar challenges are turning to similar solutions. Massive land reclamation projects, artificial islands, seawalls, engineered coastlines, and the results are mixed. Dubai is the most famous example. The Palm Jumeirah, the World Islands, massive artificial archipelagos built in the Persian Gulf. Technologically impressive, visually stunning, but also environmentally controversial, with concerns about disrupted marine ecosystems, altered currents, and long-term sustainability. Singapore has reclaimed over 20% of its total land area from the sea. The city-state has done it methodically, over decades, with strict environmental oversight. Singapore's approach is often held up as the gold standard: careful planning, robust engineering, and a government that prioritizes long-term sustainability. Hong Kong has reclaimed thousands of hectares for its expanding port and urban areas. The results have been mixed, economically successful but environmentally costly, with concerns about marine life, water quality, and the social impact of displacing fishing communities. Then there's NEOM and the Line in Saudi Arabia, futuristic megaprojects promising to revolutionize urban living. They're still mostly visions on paper, but they share the same logic as Eko Atlantic: bold planning, heavy private investment, and a bet that technology and engineering can solve complex social and environmental problems. The lesson from all these projects? Success depends on how well you balance ambition with responsibility. The projects that work, like Singapore's reclamation efforts, prioritize environmental sustainability, community input, and long-term resilience. The projects that fail or face serious backlash ignore environmental concerns, exclude local voices, and prioritize spectacle over substance. So where does Eko Atlantic fit? It's too early to say definitively. The engineering is world-class, the ambition is undeniable, but the social and environmental costs are real, and they're being paid by people who have no voice in the decision-making. If Lagos wants Eko Atlantic to be a success story and not a cautionary tale, it needs to learn from those who came before. That means better environmental oversight, meaningful compensation for affected communities, investments in flood protection for neighborhoods being left behind, a more inclusive vision that doesn't just protect the wealthy while sacrificing everyone else. Because ultimately, mega projects like Eko Atlantic aren't just about engineering, they're about values, about who gets protected and who gets left behind. So let's imagine two futures for Eko Atlantic, two versions of 2050. In one version, it works. The city is complete. The Great Wall stands strong, tested by powerful storms but holding firm. Behind it, a thriving metropolis hums with life. Corporate headquarters line Eko Boulevard. International banks operate from gleaming towers. Tech startups cluster in innovation districts. Luxury apartments overlook the marina. Residents jog along the Great Wall promenade at sunrise. Lagos has become a true global city, and Eko Atlantic is the crown jewel. The project attracted billions in investment, created hundreds of thousands of jobs, and proved that African cities can compete on the world stage. Most importantly, the developers and government learned from early mistakes. They invested in flood protection for surrounding communities. They built affordable housing alongside luxury towers. They created public spaces that welcome all Lagosians. In this future, Eko Atlantic becomes a model, not just for its engineering, but for its equity. A city that adapted to climate change while lifting the entire region. A place where innovation and inclusion coexist. But there's another version of 2050, a darker one. In the future, Eko Atlantic is half empty. The global economy shifted. Oil prices stayed low. Nigeria's political instability scared off investors. The towers were built, but many remain vacant, gleaming monuments to misplaced optimism. The promised jobs never materialized. The city became a playground for the ultra-rich, a gated community sealed off from the chaos of the rest of Lagos. And outside the wall, disaster. Alpha Beach, Okan Alpha, and a dozen other communities have been completely submerged. The ocean surges that once threatened Victoria Island now ravage unprotected neighborhoods. Millions displaced, infrastructure destroyed, resentment simmers. The Great Wall stands, but it stands alone, protecting a luxury enclave while the rest of Lagos drowns. Eko Atlantic becomes a symbol not not of progress, but of inequality, a fortress for the few, surrounded by the suffering of the many. Which future becomes reality depends on choices being made right now. Choices about investment, regulation, and who gets a voice in planning. Choices about whether Eko Atlantic is a project for all of Lagos or just a privileged few. So here's where we are. Eko Atlantic is real. It's happening. Slowly, expensively, controversially, but it's happening. $6 billion poured into reclaiming land from the Atlantic. An 8.5-kilometer seawall designed to hold back thousand-year storms. Towers rising, roads being paved, infrastructure taking shape. On one hand, it's an engineering marvel, a bold solution to Lagos's space shortage and flood crisis, a bet on Africa's future, a city that could become a global financial hub and prove that African megacities can compete with the best. On the other hand, it's a stark illustration of inequality, a fortress for the wealthy while nearby communities sink into the sea, a project that displaced people, disrupted coastlines, and funneled storm surges toward those least able to defend themselves. The truth is, Eko Atlantic could be both. It could be a game changer and a warning sign, a success story for some, a tragedy for others. The question isn't whether Eko Atlantic will stand. The wall will probably hold. The towers will probably fill. The question is whether Lagos, all of Lagos, will stand with it. So what do you think? Is this the future of cities? A necessary adaptation to climate change and urbanization? Or is it an expensive mistake, a symbol of how development too often leaves the vulnerable behind? If your city tried to build something like this, would you support it? Would you demand a seat at the table? Would you ask who's being protected and who's being sacrificed? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear from you, especially if you are from Lagos or if you've watched these kinds of mega projects unfold in your own city. If you enjoyed this deep dive and want more videos about mega projects, future cities, and the hidden costs of progress, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.